to So That Reminds Me, Reminder Publishing's podcast discussing Western Massachusetts news. I'm Ryan Feyre.
And I'm Tyler Garnet.
And we are your hosts for today's episode. This episode of So That Reminds Me is sponsored by the Big Broadcast 1940s radio show, Saturday, March 7th, with performances at 2 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. in Chapin Auditorium at Mount Holyoke College. Tickets are available at the Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley and online at mhc.ludus.com and at the door. Today we welcome Springfield City Council President Tracye Whitfield onto the podcast. Whitfield was recently reelected to her at-large position on the Springfield City Council, and in January became the first woman of color in the city's history to be voted in as the body's president. She has served on the City Council since 2018, and is currently the executive director for the Coalition for an Equitable Economy, which is a local coalition that aims to ensure equitable access to capital for BIPOC small business owners across Massachusetts. Whitfield stops by the studio to talk about her short time as president so far, working with the current iteration of the council, and some of the biggest priorities that she and councilors plan to tackle in the upcoming term. But first, Tyler, want to get into some business here. It's good to have you back on the podcast. We did the Wings podcast a couple weeks ago, and where we reviewed a bunch of different places around the area. Tyler was supposed to be on, but he had a big event in Chicopee.
Yes, I was sad that I had to miss the podcast episode. Mm-hmm. It sounded great. I'm glad you guys were able to read my review, and obviously I was most excited to be able to try the wings themselves. Yes. So that was awesome. So I really enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, and it was in preparation for the Super Bowl, which just occurred on Sunday. And Tyler, you're probably the happiest person at Reminder Publishing right now, I would say. As a Jets fan.
Yeah, and in an office filled with Patriots fans, I definitely would be the happiest. I'm not gloating about it by any means, because you guys still had a great season, made it pretty farther than I think I'll ever see the Jets possibly go. But obviously, we'll get into the top stories in Western Massachusetts soon, but I think the biggest one is definitely everyone still kind of getting over that Super Bowl loss. So, sorry to Patriots fans out there. Happy for the Seahawks and Sam Darnold. Congrats to them.
Sam Darnold, the Jets drafted him number 3 overall.
Yeah. This is why we drafted him, to take down the Patriots and make them wait at least one more year. So
I saw someone say, "Is this a Super Bowl for the Jets too?" If the Seahawks wins, I'm like,
the closest we might get is how I felt. But outside the outcome, I thought the game was pretty boring, and
it was.
Commercials lackluster. But
I was gonna ask, what did you think of the commercials? Because I definitely didn't think they were that funny. I just think they're stupider. I you know what I mean?
A lot of them really do get kind of more outrageous, and not even funny or anything. So I mean, obviously, I think a lot of that has to probably do with the price tag that they place on it. I mean, was it $7 or $10 million for a 30-second commercial or something crazy like that?
Insane,
so, listen, why would you pay that much money when you can just release the commercial the following day? So
they used to be clever, and they used to be a little edgier. And then the other thing I noticed this year was the AI stuff. You could tell Dunkin'. They had a Dunkin' Donuts commercial with all 90s famous 90s TV characters like Urkel. And there's characters from the show Friends, and other and
Seinfeld and stuff.
Ben Affleck was in it, I believe, and you could they did something to their faces to make them look younger, it was the 90s again, and it looked so weird and kind of creepy. Honestly,
they did the same thing.
I don't know if you saw that one.
I noticed it more too in the Jurassic Park commercial as well. I was like, this looks like they're in a video game, and they tried from graphics from the 90s. It just looked awkward, So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean I will say though, the halftime show I thought was pretty excellent.
Yes,
I thought the presentation. I've never listened to Bad Bunny's music, so that was kind of my first experience with his music. But as far as the presentation and how cinematic it looked, and just the choreography of everything, I thought it was actually really impressive. To be honest.
I feel like to be able to host. Or to be in the Super Bowl halftime show. It's not even just if you have good music, which he does. It's also you need to be able to captivate the audience. And I mean, he had it with his stage, with his performances. I mean, they had the actual wedding taking place and stuff. So there was a lot of cool features of it, and took a little dive into, the history of Puerto Rico. You know, it was a very informative, educational kind of halftime as well. And it was really a great moment to see. I'm happy for him. I'm happy it went well, and, excited to see who the next headliner will be. Yeah,
100%. And I know, this might sound trite, maybe a little corny, but with so much division in the world, it was cool to see like him bring all the countries kind of together at the end there with all the flags. I thought that was pretty powerful too. So
I
very
think
positive.
So. Yeah, no. Overall, the halftime show was probably one of the better features of the entire Super Bowl experience, at least for me. So
100%.
Game was boring, commercials were boring.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
But now that we're done with the Super Bowl, we're kind of in, I think, what a lot of people would describe as like the dog days of winter.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Puxatawny Phil saw the shadow, so there's 6 more weeks. But that doesn't mean news isn't still happening around here, and we got a lot of big things happening, especially in your communities, Tyler. We could start with the Holyoke recently approving the restructuring of its finance department. I know that's something that before I even was the managing editor of Holyoke and Chicopee, that was something that Mayor Garcia has been talking about for like a year or so.
Yeah. He mentioned, as well as the current city treasurer, Rory Casey, they mentioned how this has stemmed from a DLS report from, the State's Department of Local Services from 2007. It's been like a 20-year process, 20-year saga, trying to figure out to get the state's or the city's, financial structure back on track. So this was big. Garcia highlighted, since he ran for treasurer, since he ran his first term as mayor and this term, his big point has been to implement a better finance department within the city. For years, it's kind of just been putting, a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, as they mentioned a few times, different people at the press conference. So the new finance department will, have more of a focus on how they'll handle their city finances. It specifically modernizes its financial operations by centralizing key functions under the new Department of Finance, starting with, at the top, a new position, which would be the CAFO, or the Chief Administrative and Financial Officer, a role that Holyoke has also been urged to create for nearly 20 years. The act is also looking to consolidate the treasurer and collector position to one, as well as introduce a comptroller and some financial analysts to the department. Rory Casey, his term was set to end on February 1st, but with the act just recently getting approved at the City Council meeting in January and then officially signed into law by Garcia on February 9th, Casey was also appointed to serve as the interim treasurer until they can find a treasurer-collector to fill that position. So, although that this was signed into act, there's still like a lot of moving pieces. Starting with the CAFO, they said that position has been posted. They're looking for someone to fill that position. And then it's almost going to be like a trickle-down kind of domino effect. That's when they'll look into filling out the job descriptions further for like the treasurer collector, fill that position. They're still looking for a city auditor, fill that position, comptrollers, financial analysts, etc. to, kind of deal with all that. Because, as I mentioned a little bit more in the article that's online at the Reminder, the city has also had a lot of problems with, some free cash over the past few fiscal years, not being able to close their books. They've had some outside help that they're working on. They've closed FY23 audit is complete. The audit for FY24 is underway, and they expect to finish the FY25 audit by the end of the year. The current treasurer, Casey, mentioned how he kind of walked into this position with just a mess in front of him, to paraphrase. And he said, he wants to be able to figure out all the financial stuff now so that when the next person comes in, he's got a clean slate and he's able to start implementing these new functions, help the town save money, have some more, nice flow of free cash. So this really was, as Garcia said, a historic day for the city. And, there'll be plenty of coverage and plenty to take away from it in the months to come.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it seems like it was, he was able to get it done with the new council too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that definitely helped. I think we mentioned that before. And yeah, like you said, it does seem to help kind of streamline the process for the city. You know, as you mentioned, like the state was halting local aid payments because of
Mm-hmm.
you know, not completing their cash reconciliation. So this does seem like a big positive for the city. And also, it seems like there's like a home rule petition process too that'll need to occur. But as you said, Garcia signed it into law, so it's set in motion now. It seems like they're setting it in motion.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. You know, you mentioned with the new city council, because this has been talked about at previous iterations of the council. There's been a lot of discussion against it. It's got voted down a couple times. So, you know, for this to finally, with the new council finally being, you know, sworn in January, over just a little over a month later, or maybe even exactly a month later, you know, it finally gets signed into law. So, yeah, there's going to be steps to follow. You know, and all the meetings are posted online if anyone wants to check those out. There's even a further explanation of everything going on there, but it should be good for the city going forward, because there was a lot of headlines in the past about some negative stories with their finance department, so hopefully this puts those to bed. Yeah,
and it's worth mentioning too that the treasurer role is now an appointed position instead of an elected position, which is something you reported on. I think you said in this article, but also in prior coverage. So.
Yeah, that happened a year ago. That was something to kind of steamroll this entire process. You know, they want someone, not that they haven't been qualified, but something with even more qualifications. You know, someone that has a more financial background and someone who's able to really right the ship and have a good hand on the wheel in the situation. So
and I'm sure it helps with the vetting process. You know, just know, like you said, knowing their background a little more. So
so that's gonna be something that's eventually appointed. I lay out in the article a little bit, especially with the CAFO too, with these positions being appointed. You know, the mayor and the city council are gonna interview them and go forward and seeing who the right candidate is, whether they have 2 or 3 candidates, you know, they're going to interview all of them and things like that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens in there in Holyoke. The big story, though, is the South Hadley budget situation, especially for schools. And I was so incredulous just reading your story that I had to like confirm with you that everything was correct, because I haven't seen anything like it. But if you want to explain, Tyler, what's happening there too.
Yeah, so that's been something that South Hadley has been talking about for months now. It's kind of it still deals with the financial, you know, department topic we were just talking about, but it's unfortunately trending in a more negative direction as of right now. So South Hadley has for months identified a potential budget deficit in their FY27 budget. They say it is due to a plethora of things, health insurance being at the top of it, but also, you know, there being just a not declining population, but steady, you know, population, not a lot of new growth, as well as, you know, less state aid and stuff like that. So they've identified that there'll be a budget, you know, deficit of, I believe, $3 million annually for the next few years. So that's not a small amount of money.
No.
So they created a budget task force to go through some past budgets in the town, to be able to look at the data, see some key cost drivers, some growth constraints, and have a long-term financial outlook. They also hosted public input sessions. They hosted monthly meetings. They put out some community surveys to really see how they could get to the root of the problem. And what it's leaning towards now is the final budget task force report was posted and reported on in a meeting on February 9th. And then the select board and multiple departments met on February 10th, last night as of recording, to discuss possibly setting a town meeting for February 25th to see about a potential Proposition 2.5 tax override, which is something that I know a lot of towns and communities might have heard about before or might have to even dealt with before. It's something you don't take lightly, but I mean, they've been going through plenty of different options They went through a no override option. They looked at a $3 million tax override, $6 million, $9 million, and $11 million tax override. Each option would take place over a few years, and they break down the impact it would have on single-family household bills per month. I think $40 would be the highest impact per month for an average single family, which doesn't seem like a lot in hindsight, but obviously that's a lot less money per year when you break down the numbers. So, and it's something that has to be looked at, because the town, and especially like you said, the schools have really had to, there's a lot of potential proposed cuts that really could affect the town.
Yeah, 100%. Some of them would be just, I think, detrimental to student health and just, mental health and all that. So we'll see what happens in South Hadley. I know it's a very fluid situation, and even as we're speaking now, I know you're covering meetings about it, and things are going to continue to evolve. So, but Tyler's most recent article about it is online right now, and there'll be more coverage in the next few days. So keep a lookout for that. We'll see what happens with the school budget in South Hadley. I just want to touch on a couple other stories too, real quick. Trent just did a story about with Mayor Gina Louise Shara of Northampton, where he sat down with her, went over her second term as mayor and what her goals and some of the major projects that are happening, like the Main Street one, Project Main Street in Northampton. So that's also online for people to check out. Our whole team actually sat down with our respective mayors and talked with them about their goals for their upcoming term. So also there's Mayor Joshua Garcia sit down. There's a Mayor John View of Chicopee, and then there's Mayor Salem Derby of East Hampton as well. So those are all up on the website for people to check out. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention in Chicopee, Tyler, I know this is another big thing you covered last week. The Neal U.S. Rep. Richard Neal visited to announce federal funding for the city's nitrogen removal project. It looks like it's a multi-phase project to combat climate change and prevent pollution into the Connecticut River, it seems like. So that's a multi-phase thing. So Neal visited Chicopee last week to announce that funding. So that's also on the website for people to check out. Pretty big deal for Chicopee. And then the last thing I'll just mention, I don't really mention much about Penny Saver, but I'll mention that Westfield, they're voting on the city council passed the first reading on a moratorium for battery energy storage systems. Just wanted to mention that because I know that's been a big topic of discussion in Western Mass, especially in my hometown of Agawam. So it looks like they're trying to vote a moratorium on battery energy storage systems, so that they can kind of create their own local ordinances that align with the state's. So people can keep an eye out for that too. I think there's a second reading on the issue on February 19th. So just wanted to mention that as well, because I know it's a big topic around here. But yeah, a lot going on here in Western Mass, even though it's the dog days of winter. But now we're gonna welcome Council President Whitfield into the studio. But first, we're going to take a quick ad break.
Prime Magazine is all about connection. In our social issue, we explore how staying connected with family and friends can help you live longer, healthier, and happier. Discover the best apps and websites to meet people who share your passions. Learn how volunteering can help open new doors. And get tips for planning a multi-generational getaway that brings everyone together. We'll even show you how to turn your next workout into a fun social activity, because fitness is always better with friends. And if you're an advertiser looking to reach the over 45 market, contact sales manager Scott Green at 413-525-6695. Prime, your best life now.
We get it. You're busy, but you want to be connected to your local community. If you're not reading The Reminder, Western Mass's free weekly newspaper, you're missing out on the heartbeat of your town. Stay in the loop with all the latest buzz, from local stories to community updates and exciting events. It's all in The Reminder. Just log on to thereminder.com and dive into the hometown news you love. To subscribe to receive The Reminder at your home, call 413-788-1316. Don't miss a beat. Your town, your stories, your community for over 60 years. The Reminder. We are hometown news.
right. So we are here with Springfield City Council President Tracye Whitfield. Councilor Whitfield, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Not bad.
Awesome.
We were just talking about surviving the dog days of winter, so we're just kind of getting through that.
It's funny how we're celebrating it warming up, and I think it's 35 degrees outside. That's warm.
Window weather.
I walked out from the 1-2 degree weather, and it was like 25, 35. I was like, oh my goodness, it's warm today.
Yeah.
That's so shocking.
Not bad. Yeah, soon enough we'll be in spring hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Councilor Whitfield, I wanted to start, and this is such maybe such a basic and kind of goofy question, but I do think like it's important because I don't know if listeners and readers know the role of a city council president, and I think it's different for a lot of communities. So I just wanted to like ask you, in your eyes, what is kind of the role, your role as a city council president in Springfield?
As a city council president, we preside over the meetings, and we also schedule meetings. We prepare the agenda for the meetings, for the city council meetings. We also assign subcommittees to the councilors. I participate in most of the subcommittee meetings. We don't have to, but we are honorary members of each subcommittee. And I have the opportunity of creating special committees for the city council, which will look into budget and finance, procurement. So we have the opportunity to do that.
I remember covering some of those subcommittee meetings last year in the short time I covered Springfield, and it seems like the meat of the discussion happens there, at least a large part of it, so constituents kind of know what's going on before it goes in front of the full council.
Exactly.
So these those seem really important. So Councilor Whitfield, you've been a councilor since 2018.
Yes.
Is that correct? And you were vice president last term. You're now president. I wanted to just ask if you wanted to kind of reflect on your short time as the president so far. Like, what has there been anything you've accomplished? Has there been any challenges? Has there been a learning curve at all? Like, what is your thought process?
Well, it's definitely a learning curve, but I hope that any mistakes that I make, others can learn from. I'm definitely still learning the role, and it's interesting. I get a lot more calls, a lot more invites and requests to events. I do try to attend as many as I can, but I also work with the other city councilors and try to get them the same exposure. I like to share everything, but it's definitely challenging. There's some rule that I didn't quite understand that I'm putting in corrective actions for right now. I'm pretty sure you all heard it. I know you're gonna get to it, so I might as well clear up that elephant in the room. So it was my perception, and I've seen it done, and I don't want to point out any counselors where they spoke on a particular item and then recuse themselves from the vote or abstain from the vote. And I think I may have got a little bit confused there. I didn't realize I had to step down from proceeding over the vote itself. Over the deliberation itself. And I was supposed to recuse myself from the beginning because I am part of Jets Property Development. The person who was testifying in front of the city council is my son. I'm not trying to. I own my responsibility. I didn't follow the conflict of interest laws to the T, and I have been reading them over and over and over again, so that doesn't happen again. But before all this happened, I was working with UMass in Springfield to create trainings for new city councilors, legislation overall, and civic engagement for the community, because I know there's just going to be some things that I don't know. It's a lot to remember. But I always want to own it. I want to be transparent. I want to apologize. I don't want to lose the public's trust. And so that's why I came forward immediately and took corrective action steps, like contacting the ethics department. I contacted the law department. So it wasn't like, oh, you're under investigation. I contacted them the same night after the meeting. So just wanted to put all that out there. It wasn't deliberate. And I know some folks may portray it that way, but it was not deliberate. I would never do anything intentionally like that.
Yeah. Just on that topic alone, what's kind of the next steps with that? Is there going to be like another vote with the council?
Yeah. From what I seen, what came across my desk is they're going to vote to rescind the vote that happened on Monday the 2nd. I will not be there, of course. But yeah, I think that's taking place Friday, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's important. One thing you mentioned that I like was, the curriculum for new counselors. I covered Chicopee and Holyoke. There's been fresh new faces on the council as well, and I know the president has been talking about that. Because there is a lot going into it, even if you've been a counselor for years. Sometimes the language or sometimes the charter, some of that, those pages could be long, so I think that's important.
Yeah, I was really interested in doing that because when I joined the council in 2018, there was like literally no training. You just sit down, you take conflict of interest training on your own, no one to explain anything. There's just like no training at all, and I want to be a different president. Another thing that I am going to do in the near future is have some office hours where the public can come and talk to me, or even other legislators. And I haven't seen that done from any other council president since I've been on the council. But I just want the public to know that I am here. And I'm obtainable, available, and I hope that the community takes advantage of that.
Of course, and one thing we didn't mention yet, which we wanted to talk about a little bit, is you were the first woman of color in the city's history to be voted as the body's president. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
And we wanted to see if you could just share your thoughts on what that really means to you.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I never thought I was even going to be in politics growing up.
Sure.
I didn't know a lot about politics until I started working in the finance department of City Hall. And, it means everything to me because now I'm a role model. So even when I make mistakes, I have to own them and take accountability for the things that I do. And I'm always going to do that because no one knows everything. But just being a role model to other young people so they know that, your path might take you in different directions than you planned, but everything that you learn along the way is helping to build your skill set to be able to go in different paths than you originally planned. So this path has been interesting, to say the least. I didn't know a lot about politics. I didn't know about the challenges of being a politician. I don't see myself as a politician. I see myself as an organizer. I see myself as an advocate. And sometimes I used to get a little bit offended when people would say, well, you're just a politician. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Well, there's a certain notion with it, right? Because you kind of have to play a game in some ways. You have to get votes.
Right.
You got to get the support. So you do have to kind of, play
appeal
a little bit.
To the different demographics of different people, what's important to the community and the constituents, but also have to be true to yourself as well. I'm not going to agree with everything. Everybody's not going to agree with me, but it just means a great deal to just show, especially young girls, that they can be anything they want to be. Because this is 250 years in the making.
That's true.
250 years is a long time to be the first woman of color on the city council, and I hope breaking this barrier, it'll open other doors where there hasn't been a woman of color in position.
Absolutely.
Going off of that, I was wondering, you haven't been on the council since 2018. You're kind of a veteran at this point. I wanted to ask, what are your kind of thoughts with the current council now? I know there are a lot of familiar faces, and there's a couple of new councilors. There's a little bit of turnover from the past election. So I just want to ask, how has it been working with this iteration of the council in the short month plus that you have?
Well, it's been interesting, I'll say. Some not always good, not terrible, but I'm happy that we have new young blood like Jerry Martin that recently joined the council. I think he's going to bring another whole perspective to the council that we need. I do think that change is good, and I think that we all should be open to at least listening to different point of views and, just considering what others have to say. I'm looking forward to the year. I think it will be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm used to being in the chair, able to talk more, so it's really different for me to preside over the council, and can't really talk at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And, kind of going off that, not being able to talk as much, one thing you mentioned when you were sworn in was trying to leverage the strengths of each council member. So, how has that process been for the most part? And, what have you attempted so far, or what are your plans to kind of attempt to, leverage those councils in the future?
Well, I definitely listened to the old presidents, and they helped me get through the process. They helped me with the technology that I'm not familiar with. And so I'm just hoping that I can leverage the council in any way necessary. Of course, there's some that got a lot more knowledge than me. They've been there longer than me. I love working with Cateri Walsh. She always will lend a helping hand and tell you her perspective. So it's great even having some senior. I think there's a good balance on the council as far as race and ethnicity and male. Well, we could use a couple more females, but we're getting there, right? And good. Even like the age differences within the council, I think it's a good balance.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to, obviously I wanted to get into kind of specific priorities, specific issues pertaining to Springfield. I personally live like 5 minutes from Springfield, so I visit all the time, go out to eat. I know there's been some businesses that have closed, some that have opened. I just went to a Taste of Tradition in Indian Orchard.
You did?
Yeah, like a couple weeks ago. I got the breakfast pizza.
Going there today.
Really good, yeah. And I wanted to ask, because I know that's something that's important to you, kind of fostering a healthy business community, especially for, Black and Latinx and immigrant communities. I wanted to ask, what are your kind of thoughts on the current kind of business ecosystem in Springfield?
I think the business ecosystem is dated. I think we need new ideas, fresh new ideas, and I think that any administration that's in place have to be open to all cultures, all backgrounds, to everybody to grow the ecosystem. We have a lot of people leaving because there's not a lot of resources for small businesses. And I also run a statewide coalition, and so when I go throughout the state, I see other initiatives that I'm like, oh, we can do that in Springfield, but it's not as easy to implement change in Springfield, and so I think that is very much needed. We have to get small business technical assistance going for our small businesses to make sure that they have their back office support services together, like their accounting, marketing, business plan, their legal, all that in place, so that when it's time to get loans and grants and things like that, they're ready, and also sustainability plans. And so we just I think that we need a more robust small business ecosystem or department to look at all the resources that are out there, look at all the programs that are out there, look at what other communities are doing, and bring it to Springfield.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you mentioned, we were going to touch on the coalition, how it's kind of informed you with your work. You've had some takeaways from other communities to help you, but what are some ways that maybe the council itself can be able to help implement this small business ecosystem?
I think we're the voice of the people, and what's difficult is the administration don't talk to all of us. They have their select people that they will communicate with. So I think that we just have to do more talking to each other, and hopefully the message will get out. But we also have to educate our residents and constituents on what's out there as well, because there are statewide organizations that can help our businesses as well. And I think they need to go to Western Mass EDC meetings. They need to know what Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is doing, and all the programs that are out there. There's great industry programs that even Holyoke Community College and Springfield Technical Community College are putting in place for clean energy. That's a great pathway for folks in the construction field to transition to higher wage, higher paying small businesses and jobs.
Gotcha.
And so I think we need more access and opportunities. We need to get the word out more. It should be spread very broadly throughout the city. I just don't think that happens all the time.
Yeah. Shifting gears here, Councilor Whitfield, I wanted to touch on something because in my time covering Springfield, there was a lot of it seemed like Springfield was kind of at this consequential juncture when it comes to like environmental issues. And I know, the city lost an EPA grant for $20 million for climate change mitigation initiatives, for those who don't know. And then I know that I think just recently the building permits were restored for the biomass plant project, which is the city council has been fighting for 15 years or so, a little more. And also Springfield in general has been named the asthma capital of the world, or of the country, and I think it was 2019. I wanted to ask you, what is your kind of assessment of Springfield's environmental situation? What are your kind of concerns? I know when I was covering Springfield, I talked to Councilor Govan about an urban woodlands ordinance that they're working on. So that seemed like a positive thing happening in Springfield. But I wanted to kind of get your opinion on where Springfield kind of stands now in that realm.
I think Springfield is trying. Losing the EPA grant, I was so proud because when I heard that, I actually am also working in the climate justice field. And when I heard that, and we were the only city in the state at that time to get the EPA grant, and I was like, wow, $20 million, that's going to help us out a lot. It's going to help us retrofit, because we do have weatherization program that you can apply for that's run by the city of Springfield. And I think we have some other programs related to clean energy. So I think we are getting there. That is a start. I do think we still have a lot more work to do as far as educating our residents on conversions, maybe to fuel pumps and other clean energy type. I got to get a fuel pump myself. I have oil, so I'm looking at I'm looking at the clean energy programs too, and the rebates and what it means to have a clean environment, because like you said, the asthma rates are really high.
I have asthma, so
you do. And I remember talking to one of my friends, and she was telling me, and she's about my age, so I'm in my 50s, I'm 51, and she was saying mostly everyone in her class had asthma, and they were at Harena, and Harena had the water problems and the mildew, and the ventilation was bad, and she was like, that's why we all had asthma. And I'm like, yeah, so we definitely got to take care of our community. I'm proud of organizations like Live Well Springfield. They do a lot of climate justice along with Wayfinders. And so I just try to stay abreast on what they're doing and support as much as I can.
Yeah, of course. And, you just mentioned a lot of different organizations who help try and mitigate some of those concerns. And, I just try and bring the conversation back to City Council again. What are some ways the City Council can kind of help mitigate some of those concerns as well?
Well, ordinances like the woodland ordinance, and I think there is a environment subcommittee. I can't remember the exact title. I think that subcommittee has to get active. Bring more of the ideas to subcommittee meetings so we can and we also have to do our research. Other communities have implemented it wouldn't be like we're the first community that's making change, but we have to do our research and then we have to implement. So we have work to do, but I still think that it can be done.
The urban woodlands ordinance thing seemed really it seemed like a good move on mine, because I remember covering it, and I think it's probably still in the developmental stages, but I remember talking to Councilor Govan. It seemed like it was a fiscally responsible ordinance, and there was also a lot of it seemed like they had a lot of conversations with developers too to appease any concerns. So that was a big thing I remember. But
yeah, and another reoccurring issue that we wanted to touch on that's more directly related to the council, in many communities appears inevitable that residents' tax bills increase every year. I saw that this past year that the average bill increased by $244 a month. And there's a story we ran in the Reminder as well last year that you were quoted saying, we can do more with the budget to help ease the burden of taxpayers. Now as council president, what's your focus with the upcoming budget season? Have you found some, budgetary avenues where the council can help ease the burden and stuff like that? What are your current thoughts on that?
Well, I don't vote on that budget because that's what sets the tax rate ultimately. But So I did start the special committee, fiscal accountability and budget, which is going to be run by Zeta Govan. She's chairing that. And we're going to dig into that budget, and we're going to see where the waste is. I actually got copies of the past year line items, and there is waste. And I'm not talking about cutting jobs or even trimming services, but there are waste in the budget. If we have free cash of $14 million and $20 million, that means there's extra money that was built into the budget that we could have reduced the tax liability by that amount.
Sure.
We do need free cash at the end of the year, but I don't think we need that much free cash.
Sure.
And I think that going through this process with the special committee, we'll be able to see where the wastes really are and some things that we can maybe change, tailor, combine. We'll be able to. So I'm really excited about that. So the committees was a fair process. There was an application process that ended on Friday. And so now the selection committee have to pick 5 members to be on it. And the chair and myself had our own pick. So it'll be 9 people on each committee.
Okay.
And they're going to get to work.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for that because we have to reduce the tax burden. It's been 10 years in a row that property tax increase, and our community's income is not increasing at the same rate as utilities, taxes, and food.
It seems to be an unfortunate theme.
Heating, like the Eversource bills.
I know that was. Oh goodness.
I know that was a big thing. That's But this is like unfortunate. I mean, this is like it's just issue in every community. I'm sure you, Tyler, with Chicopee and Holyoke, you probably noticed.
Same thing.
Like,
South Hadley. It's just an unfortunate theme everywhere. Like towns are trying to implement new growth. We talked about business. They're trying to find new revenue sources, but the cost of utilities and everything else is just rising, and every single household is, kind of hurting from it. So it's definitely important to kind of take a look at it. So I definitely wish you guys luck.
Thank you. Hope we wish us luck. Pray for us, all of that. We're going to need, and it's only going to be suggestions. We don't have any authority. That's the executive branch, but at least people are wanting to get involved. We're getting new people to the table. It's not a hand-picked committee, so I'm excited.
That's what I think is important, too, because, there's obviously plenty of people who will speak out publicly about the complaint, but, kind of not put their money where their mouth is, if you will. So now if you have a lot of people, candidates going for these committees, you have a little variety of people coming from maybe different backgrounds, different incomes, who are able to try and tackle this, budget upcoming seasons and for seasons to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was great about it, they don't all have to be Springfield residents, because we need broader perspectives than just Springfield. Springfield's going to know Springfield, but there are other perspectives that we can piggyback on and maybe do some implementation. So I'm excited to see what comes out of it at the end of the year.
That would be important. Especially to touch on, they don't have to just be from Springfield. Like I just said, every community's dealing with it, so maybe they can bring stuff to Springfield, and Chicopee residents can bring it back, or whoever. So that's
and that's
awesome.
what we should do as a region. We should share ideas and
especially Massachusetts becoming such a expensive place to live.
I
know it's touted as like the like all these great like educational institutions, but it's like when people are in debt and and the prices are what they are for housing, it's like,
and we gotta figure out how to keep young people like yourselves around and bring more of your talent into the fold. So
absolutely,
100%. Well, kind of going off of that, I mean, and this is like, again, like, I feel like beyond a lot of our control, but like the issue of housing affordability, I know there's only so much the council can do. There's certain things you guys have done. I know there's the discussion about setting size for new apartments, minimum size for apartments. I know that was just recently voted on. How can the council kind of approach this kind of issue of just the lack of affordable housing that plays the city? Like, is there anything? I mean, I feel like the minimum size thing was kind of somewhat of a tangible way, but maybe there's other mechanisms too.
I did not support the minimum.
I remember that.
I remember size because, for example, a developer came to us. He wanted to build like quite a bit of apartments, and some one bedrooms and studio size, but some of them were going to be 492 square feet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now you got to have an extra step of bureaucracy and come before the council and get a variance and all these extra things when it's already hard to do certain business in the city of Springfield. One thing is I am part of the SEDS. With Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Look up that acronym for me.
Yes, we'll get that later.
And so the housing wayfinders is at the table, and I think we have to do a lot more in affordable housing, even workforce housing and market rate housing. I think that it has to be a balance, right? Because we just need that, and so we need to look at mixed use type style properties, workforce housing, and I'm also a part of the Housing Trust Advisory Board, and so we're also looking at creative ways that we can increase the housing that's in the city of Springfield and utilize like funding sources that will allow developers to build low-income housing or low to medium-income housing. So there's buildings that are in Springfield that have been vacant for years. There's land that has been vacant for years. Even with that Paper Street, it has been vacant since 1990.
Gotcha,
no one was looking at that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, even the criticism from one counselor in particular, no one was looking at this property, and we're trying to put it on the tax roll for new growth and create housing. And so, you know, but that's unfortunate, and we just have to do more, think of more creative ways to increase our housing stock.
Just another kind of issue that is just seems to be across Western Massachusetts and the state as well. That is something a lot of people have to work on. And
well, there's I just want to bring up there's also the accessory dwelling unit issue. I remember the council voted on that. I think every council in the region had a vote on that because the state had their own regulations around that. Like, do you think that's like one way of solving the issue?
I definitely think that's a possibility. Especially for like our young adults that leave and they need to come back to affordable properties, but don't necessarily want to live with their parents. It's still your own little apartment, you know, and you're paying probably less money than market rate or anything like that. So I definitely think that it's a win-win, even for like in-laws that or seniors that no longer want to live on their own and they want to be closer, but they still want their own space. So I think ADUs is a great benefit. We did get pushback because some residential communities don't want, like, to them it's like a multifamily and they want to keep their single family appeal and don't want, like, you know, absentee landlord stuff to happen and things like that. So I understand both sides. We haven't approved or seen any. I think we may have approved one ADU in the city so far. I'm interested to see what happens with it. So but I do think it is a creative way to create more housing opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I know as we're kind of getting to the end of the podcast here, we brought up a lot of different issues. We brought up a lot of different points, but we wanted to give you an opportunity. Are there any priorities or issues that you're also looking to tackle in this next term? Maybe some past or you know, future issues?
Always looking at quality of life, but you all hit it on the head for me. It's economic development and economic growth, bringing our young people back to the city of Springfield, keeping our people here, creating housing. Definitely don't want homeless people on the street, so we need to figure that out. I'm always going to look for ways to decrease like gun violence and things like that, and I think the superintendent is doing a good job, but it has to be a whole community effort. We can't expect one person or one counselor to solve all issues. And so just like, and even the way that people talk about Springfield, we have a lot of great assets. We have the city of first. Just want to change the narrative to a more positive narrative than what some of the surrounding communities may hear, think, or speak.
Absolutely.
Because it's just really not true. Usually people that are involved in the violence live that life. It's not just happening randomly. And so I just want to change the narrative on how people think and talk about Springfield as well.
And I think also think about Springfield outside of like downtown, because you know, like I like when I just learning about the city, like when I went to Indian Orchard a lot, like just having like that Main Street, I didn't know much about it before covering, and that, you know, that's a cool little tidbit,
Definitely. I'm glad you brought that up. And the new development out where Eastville Mall used to be.
Yes, yeah.
And so
Springfield Crossing.
Springfield Crossing. I'm excited about that, and I'm hoping that more of that can happen throughout the city of Springfield in every neighborhood.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you brought up the focus of downtown. We love our downtown, and we also want to see it grow and thrive and economically, but Springfield as a whole, we need that throughout the city.
Definitely.
Well, Councilor Whitfield, is there anything else you want to add or say to listeners, to the Springfield residents at all?
Yeah, just get involved as much as you can. I'm so excited to be here with you, too. You have been so great and friendly, and glad to meet you, and I'll come back anytime that you ask me.
Yeah. Welcome anytime.
Okay. Thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule, and we look forward to talking in the future.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, and we're back here after our interview with Tracye Whitfield. I think, speaking for myself, I think that was a great interview. I don't know how you feel, Ryan.
Yeah, very informative. It's just I covered Springfield for maybe 9 months, and during that time, there's a lot of huge things happen, like the environmental issues, obviously the tax classification stuff was a big deal. A lot of business-related items. So I was happy to ask her about that because I know she's been she was the vice president last term. Yeah. Now the president this term. So I just felt like it was, it's a great person to talk to. Just the head of this body. Just to kind of give a little update on what's going on.
No, absolutely, and I thought she had a lot of positivity. Obviously, she mentioned some potential problems, but also problems that we kind of identified as regional problems, that Springfield's trying to tackle and try and bring in some potential help from other communities to try and, get to the bottom of housing affordability, rising tax increases, things like that. So, I thought she had a lot of great things to offer. And I think the question you mentioned about just the day-to-day of the city council president, I don't think it was a goofy question that you kind of mentioned. I think it was really important because, probably people only think you serve on the council, you hear from constituents, you set the agenda. Yeah. She mentioned she can't really have too much say. We got into the conflict of interest situation. Yeah. But regardless, I think it was good to kind of hear what they do in the day-to-day. She mentioned she kind of took out she was gracious enough to take out time to record this interview, but I'm sure as soon as she turned her phone back on
she was saying that
it was going to blow up with phone calls and texts. So there's definitely a lot that goes into it, and it was important to touch on as well. She was the first woman of color in the city's history to be voted as the body's president. So she can serve as a role model.
Yeah, 100%. And the president thing, I think there's a lot of, obviously me and you, we cover meetings all the time. So we know what they do. But, there's just readers, when I covered Springfield City Council meetings, some meetings there'd just be no one there. And I'm like, this is a city of 150,000 people. And, maybe with the advent of Zoom and remote, people can watch remotely now post-COVID. Maybe there's a lot of people watching at home that I don't know about. But, there's a lot of people that just aren't paying attention to their local government,
I know.
So I think that was an important thing to mention. But it was very nice to have Councilor Whitfield on just to give an update on things, and especially with Springfield being the biggest community in our region. So it definitely was a big deal. But I had a good time with this one, Tyler.
Yeah, as did I. It was nice to meet you. We thank you again for joining.
Thank you.
And that wraps up another episode of So That Reminds Me. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with another episode in a couple weeks.
This episode of So That Reminds Me is sponsored by the Big Broadcast 1940s radio show, Saturday, March 7th, with performances at 2 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. in Chapin Auditorium at Mount Holyoke College. Tickets are available at the Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley and online at mhc.ludus.com and at the door.
Thanks for listening to So That Reminds Me, produced by Western Massachusetts news source Reminder Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, find the latest news at thereminder.com, and follow Reminder Publishing on Instagram at Reminder Publishing, on X at The Reminder MA, and on Facebook. Reminder Publishing, we are hometown news.